Hallo a cháirstein féascar má, agus ciad míle. Hallo a cháirstein féascar má, agus ciad míle tanger son tían, he mar feichkin. Now I'm seeing a few worried looking faces and people are thinking, oh crumbs. I take it subtitles are not appearing down below me. Thank you very much for coming to our session here at the Argyll Food Festival. It's great to see you all. Before I introduce you to Caniach the Hebridean Baker, I just wanted to do a wee bit of an introduction to himself, and also I should tell you who I am. So my name is Peter. Some of you may know me. I am the Hebridean Baker's official cake taster. I take this job very seriously. It's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it. So Caniach is Scotland's best-selling cookbook author for the last 3 years running. He's been writing cookbooks now. This is his third book. All 3 books are for sale, as you can see, and actually he has a 4th book about to come out just in time for Christmas, so maybe he'll tell us a wee bit about that very soon. Caniach's passion for the stories, the recipes, and the flavours of Scotland and the Hebrides shines through everything that he does. And maybe some of you have seen him on TikTok or on Instagram or on some of the telly programmes that he's been doing, and we'll ask him a wee bit about some of those as well. But Elle magazine, now I'm going to read this quote, described Caniach as, wait for it, very Scottish, very sexy, and very outlander. So let's see if this is all true. And let me welcome Caniach MacLeod, the Hebridean Baker.
How are you all? Well, I've got an important question to ask the audience before I start the baking, okay? Who's been to the Outer Hebrides? That's a good start. Who's been to the Isle of Lewis? Who's been to my house? Just checking to make sure there's no cousins in the room before we begin. That means we can tell all the stories, Peter.
There's no stories off limits if there's no family in the room.
For sure. I think I probably do have a few cousins in Oban right enough, but luckily none here today.
There are Leosachs everywhere.
So folks, welcome. We're going to do a baking demo today, and we're going to have a wee ceilidh as well, and Peter is going to be the host of the ceilidh.
Live cooking and right in front of you. What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? I know, exactly.
Just give me directions if you need a helping hand with anything, and hopefully there'll be some cakes for us to try at the end.
There might be. Let's see how we go.
So, Caniach, you have been Scotland's best-selling cookbook author for the last 3 years running.
Thank you. Yes.
Tell us how this journey all began.
Well, who's got my first book? Right, there's some sales to do today. Well, this is my first book. It's just that I wanted to show you a photo in the book. This is my amazing aunt, my Aunt Bella. It was my Aunt Bella that taught me to bake. Peter, you can show everybody that. She's now 96, still bakes every single day. She's my absolute hero. And I was round our house one day, this is about 5 years ago now, and she was making a duff. Now, what do you mainlanders call a duff? Anybody know? What do you call it? Clootie dumpling. Clootie dumpling. Hi. She was making a clootie dumpling, and it happened to be her 65th wedding anniversary, the day I was over. And she told me that she made a clootie dumpling that morning as her own wedding cake for her own wedding. So, you know, she was telling me the stories and traditions around weddings in those days. And I went home that night and I thought to myself, do you know what? It's very easy for these stories, these traditions and recipes to get lost. So woke up the next morning and said, I'm the Hebridean Baker. Now, I didn't know what that meant that day, but I started to create videos online, making recipes, but then telling traditional stories, sometimes in English, sometimes in Gaelic, about the Hebrides. I think the first one got about 200 views. Maybe 150 of them are you, Peter, to be fair.
That was a good cake.
That was a good cake. Then I think the second one got about 400 views. Now, when you're from a village of 30 people, 400, that's a lot. That's going viral in the Outer Hebrides. But about 6 weeks later, I made a ginger loaf, and I woke up the next morning and 750,000 people had watched it. And I thought to myself, look, it's a good ginger loaf. Good. No, it is good. It is good. And then thought I better make something else. So the next day I made another cake. Woke up the next morning and 1.3 million people had watched that one. I was like, okay, what's going on? And unbeknownst to me, something was going on. Now, Peter mentioned, have you heard of that magazine, Elle magazine? Have you heard of it? The American edition, the columnist in Elle magazine, the Carrie Bradshaw of Elle magazine, her name is Rose Menentalio. She had written her column that month about another man from the Isle of Lewis. Can you believe it? You wouldn't have heard of him. No idea what he's up to these days. His name is Donald Trump. Have you heard of that man? His mother, Mary MacLeod, is from the Isle of Lewis. As you can tell from my hairstyle, no relation. But he was trying to ban TikTok at the time, the social media platform. And so she wrote her column about it that month. Try not to laugh as much as I did at what the headline she wrote in her column. She wrote, what was it again? The only thing I'll miss about TikTok is that sexy Scottish baker. Now, it did take me a while to figure out who she was talking about, but there was 2 lines that did make me smile. She said, he sounds like how I imagine a piece of shortbread would talk if it came to life. But I think my favorite was, she said, come for his cakes, stay for the way he says, cream your butter. And I'm just back from my US tour, and I was in a wee bookshop in San Francisco, and I walked in, and there was 3 ladies in the front row. Now I'm trying not to look at these ladies in the front row, because they were quite buxom ladies, and they had T-shirts with "cream your butter" written on their T-shirts. I should have had those for sale today, actually. That would have been a great idea. Anyway, the rest is history. It's been an amazing few years. You'll see I've got 3 cookbooks at the moment, and my 4th one, which is this one here, comes out on the 10th of October. Perfect time for Christmas presents. But today, you'll be able to get the other cookbooks as well. So,
Fantastic.
Shall we figure out what we're going to make
well,
today?
yeah, I'm seeing all of these ingredients.
Yes.
Fresh ahead of us. What are you going to be making?
Okay, so this is from my cookbook, Hebridean Baker at Home. And in English, we call them wee nuns. It's actually a French recipe. They're called nonettes. And they're from the town of Dijon. And seemingly the wee nuns used to stand on the side of the street and sell these to raise money for the monastery. And even though they are a French recipe, to me, they feel very Scottish. You know, they're wee gingerbreads, although they do have rye flour as well as plain flour. You don't have to put the rye flour in, but it does give it that extra nuttiness, which is lovely. And at the end of it, you kind of dip your thumb in and pop some jam in. So to me, a gingerbread with some homemade jam. Is there anything sounding more Scottish than that? So we're going to give that a go today.
I think you would find them at a lot of Scottish ceilings.
You would,
or a wee sale of work, wouldn't you?
So it's pretty easy, actually, but I do need to warm some of the ingredients. Don't put that too far away, because I'll need that to actually figure out what the recipe is. But we'll start in a pan. The good thing with this is everything starts in a pan, which I hope I'll be able to switch on. Peter, you switch that on. In here, now, I'm putting heather honey in here, which is from the Scottish Bee Company in Perthshire. But choose your favourite honey from there. Thank you very much. So that is, tell us how much that's going in there, about 175 grams or so of honey, is it?
Oh, questions. Runny honey, 170 grams.
170 grams. 170 grams, that's very hot, so we'll put that down a
along
wee
with
bit.
85 grams of butter.
85 grams of butter.
Now, Connor, while you're cooking, I'm going to ask you other questions. Let's see if you can multitask.
Right, well, let's do this part first. Let's get this on the heat so I can tell everybody what's going in. Brown sugar going in as well?
So brown sugar, 110 grams.
110 grams of brown sugar, yeah.
And 3 tablespoons of
vegetable oil.
Vegetable oil.
Yeah, so vegetable oil going in as well. You can see, you know, that classic kind of gingerbread style or carrot cake style as well, with the vegetable oil going in as long as the
Ushka, water.
And some water in there as well.
So that's 185 mils of water.
Okay, so just read through the ingredients I've got in here again.
Okay, so 170 grams of runny honey.
Yep.
Honey. 85 grams of butter.
Yep.
110 grams of dark brown sugar.
Yes.
3 tablespoonfuls of vegetable oil. And then 185 mils of water.
Excellent. So all you're really looking to do here is to melt the butter and for the sugar to dissolve and combine it together. So that should, on a hot hob there, really only take about a minute or so, but I'll just stir that until that's gone. And then actually, even though you want it to cool a wee bit, you still want a little bit of the heat in this when you're going to pour it into the flour mixture, which we're going to do in a second as well. So, what are you saying about multitasking?
Well, let's see if you can multitask. So, I know your mother was a Harris tweed weaver.
She was,
And
yes.
your father was a fisherman in the North Atlantic.
Yeah.
Why did you not become either of these jobs in life? Were you not tempted?
Look at those hands. Do you think they've done a hard day's work in their lives? My mother was a Harris tweed weaver. Actually, and my brother became a Harris tweed weaver after that as well. That's perfect. Look at that. That's all done. That's all you really want, is you can feel that there's no sugar left in the bottom there, and the butter has melted. So I can leave that to the side, switch that off, and leave that to cool a wee bit. I was very proud of my mother being a weaver. Her and her brother had 2 Hattersley looms across from each other in the shed. They used to work there, and my brother took over the loom when my mum stopped. And all I'll say is, I'm glad I got my height from my mother. She was 5'11", and my storytelling from my father, because he was 5'6". But he was a fisherman out in the North Atlantic, and I'm sure many of you know about kind of life on fishing boats. And he'd go out on a Sunday night, come back on a Friday. But on a Saturday, he'd come back to the village, and from the village of Cremor, and he had just a wee wooden rowing boat, and he would go out to check the lobster pots or lobster creels on a, how much am I putting over this in? On a Saturday, really just to make sure there was some food for the family over the weekend. So if you can picture the scene, mid-80s, he's out, been to the lobster pots, and he's had quite a bountiful day. He's rowing home, and suddenly all he feels is this big crash. And he looks round and he realizes he's crashed into another boat. Not only has he crashed into another boat, he's crashed into the Royal Yacht Britannia. And who's leaning over the side but the Queen and Princess Margaret? The Queen leans over and says to my father, where have you been? That's my Queen accent, by the way. Where have you been? The Queen says to my father, and my father looks up and says, I've been to the lobsters. Where have you been? And the Queen says, she says, we're on our holidays. We're off to Balmoral, but we've broken down. And my father says, he says, that's terrible, he says. Have you got anything in for tea? Now, according to my father, who did like a dram of whiskey, the Queen said no. Now, I'd be very surprised if the Queen left Buckingham Palace with nothing in for tea. But according to my father, there was nothing on the boat. So he looked up at these poor souls, and says, well, I don't want the royal family to go hungry. Looked down at his boat, which is bountiful, full of lobsters and crabs and shellfish. And he thought to himself, I better give them some, just in case they go hungry. So he looked up and says, would you like some lobsters and crabs? And Princess Margaret said yes. So he filled a creel, threw the rope up to Princess Margaret, and she pulled it onto the deck of the Royal Yacht Britannia. Chucked it onto the deck, and everything was bobbing about. Then Princess Margaret kind of nudged her sister in the ribs, and the Queen went, she said, I'm the Queen. I don't carry any money. How am I going to pay for this? My father said, don't worry. It's a gift from the village. We hope you'll return next year. So he waved them goodbye, and he kind of rode back to the village. Now, I told you he liked a dram. So what did he do? He went to the first house, told the story, got a dram of whiskey. Then went to the second house, got a bigger dram of whiskey, told a bigger story. So you can imagine what state he was in when he got back to our house. But anyway, we thought the story was going to go down in folklore with, Nessie and all those kind of things as well. But I forgot to mention my father's name was Donald John MacLeod. Now, in a village of 30 people, there was another 7 Donald John MacLeods in our village. We're not very creative with our men's names in the islands. And so one of the other Donald Johns arrived at the house one day, and he said to my father, he had a letter, and he said to my father, he said, I think this is for you. And it said Donald John MacLeod, Cremor, Isle of Lewis. But in the top right-hand corner, there was a stamp from Balmoral. And he opened the letter, and it said, "Dear Mr. MacLeod, firstly, will you apologise to the village if we caused any problems when we broke down a couple of weeks ago? We feasted on your lobsters and crabs that night, and it was the best meal we had on our trip to Balmoral. See you next year, Queenie. No, I can't remember how she signs her name." And we all stood around going, he actually told the truth. He had actually met the Queen. And I have to say, as he was kind of folding the letter away, and he kind of proudly put it in his top pocket, and I thought to myself, do you know what? I might be one of the only folk in the world that can honestly say that my father gave the Queen crabs. And she said thank you as well. So we haven't had King Charles up yet, have we?
Oh my goodness.
So
if this doesn't make it into the finale of The Crown, I don't know what the writers are doing.
I'm trying to think who would play my father in The Crown. Maybe Danny DeVito.
No, you.
Now look, so I'm just doing the dry ingredients here as well.
Yeah, so you've put in 200 grams of plain flour.
200 grams of plain flour, yep.
80 grams rye flour.
Yes, and as I said, that is optional. I mean, I do like rye flour. It is optional, but I do think it adds something a wee bit extra. And it is I always think with recipes, and I know I've got many bakers in the room, but I think start with the recipe. You know what I mean? Follow it bit by bit. But then if you enjoy the recipe, then you can put your own twists. And many of you are probably better bakers than me anyway. Then you go, oh, no, I won't put that in it. I'll put this in it. So try it the way it is and then style it any way you want. Yeah.
So what are you doing there now? That's baking powder, two of baking powder?
2 of baking powder and 1 of bicarb.
Mm-hmm. And now the spices.
The spices, yeah. So I do love finding different companies in Scotland. There's this wonderful company here called Ujama, and I met the owner of this. She gets all her spices from Kenya and Tanzania, and this is her cooperative cinnamon that I'm putting in. She's an absolute superstar. There's not many things I absolutely like brand-wise I love, but I love her spices from Ujama. And have you heard of Nielsen Massey? They do all the extracts and pastes. So good. So good. If you ever make any Bakewell tarts or anything with frangipane, their almond extract from Nielsen Massey. Oh, it's absolutely delicious. So I'm putting 1 teaspoon of the cinnamon in. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just back from the US. I was on my US tour for the last 4 weeks. And where we call it mixed spice, they call it pumpkin pie spice, exactly the same thing. But I'm going to put about 2 teaspoons in there of that as well.
So you've just mentioned that you've been on the road touring and going around many different states.
Yes.
You did a big circular all around America and Highland Games.
Yep.
This is your 3rd cookbook. Where do you get the inspiration for the recipes?
Well, it's a good point, actually. I mean, I'm a big cookbook nerd, to be totally honest with you. I love cookbooks, and I love traditional cookbooks. I love old Scottish cookbooks as well. One of my favorites, I'd say, there's one called The Scots Kitchen. It was written in 1929, F. Marion McNeill. Has anybody got that book? It's a fantastic one. And there was a couple of recipes that I was inspired by, let's say, in that one. I love a recipe that has a story behind it. And in her book, she had one called A Bride's Bon. Now, I don't know if I have any budding brides or mothers of the brides in the room today, but it's made by the mother of the bride on the day of her daughter's wedding. And it's a classic petticoat-tailed shortbread. It's from Shetland, so it's actually flavored with caraway seeds, which is, obviously you can see the Nordic influence in a lot of Shetland recipes. And as the bride and groom are walking back down the aisle after they got married, you see the mother of the bride kind of appearing. I don't have a sieve, so I do this. When I don't have a sieve, I just do that. There we go. That's sieved flour. And you see the mother of the bride appear at the end of the aisle. And you think, isn't that nice? She's going to give her daughter a wee slice of shortbread. No, she grabs the shortbread and she smashes it over her daughter's head. And it's very good luck if the guests catch a piece of the shortbread before it hits the ground. And you're supposed to put it under your pillow at night, and it's supposed to give you sweet dreams. And even if it doesn't, you've got a piece of shortbread under your pillow, which at 3 in the morning I think is always a bit of a bonus. So I love classic recipes. I love putting recipes together with a wee twist. You'll find in the books things like I've got a lemon curd tiramisu, which is delicious, and a hot toddy bundt cake. So there's lots of recipes that just add a wee twist of Scotland into a classic recipe, which I absolutely love.
I am remembering you leaving F. Marion McNeil's cookbook lying around, though, and I read that she had a recipe for limpet stovies.
Oofta, I haven't put that in my book.
I noticed that you're good at selecting nice cakes and recipes when you're doing this kind of research. But so what about from the folk that you meet, say, when you're on the road in America and things?
Yeah, for sure. No, I do. And actually, in that book there, I've also got... again, I like things that seem to be Scottish. There's one called a strawberry buckle in the book as well, which a buckle is a New England recipe, and the buckle means that the center of the cake buckles, that it should be a wee dip in it. But it's like you make quite a classic sponge recipe, and within it then you, the strawberries on top, and then a kind of streusel on the top of that. Oh, it's very, very good. Are you looking for it?
Yeah.
It should be, there it is there. There it is there. It's a very, very nice recipe indeed.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of like a crumble, isn't it?
It's
a little bit.
A streusel sponge. You can tell who's the baker in the family and who's
the
not
cake
there.
taster. He makes me do the dishes as well. It's not a free meal.
So, can you see what I've done here? So, that was the wet ingredients, but it was still quite warm. So, I probably left it for what, maybe 4 or 5 minutes there. And that went in with all the dry ingredients. But I've still got some flavour still to go in here. So I'm going to put in, if you can get me a egg yolk.
Just the yolk.
Just the yolk.
And crumbs.
And I'm going to put in, you'll find, is anybody here from France? They use a lot of rum. I don't know why, but there's a lot of rum, particularly in Breton recipes. I did a Celtic chapter in that book, so I've got recipes from Ireland, Wales, and Brittany. And in every single Breton recipe I found, it had prunes and rum. And this one from Dijon also has rum. I'm putting a wee spiced rum in here as well, just to add to the flavour. Spiced rum is definitely what I use as well to feed my cakes. Oh, thanks. Just throw that in.
Pop it in.
So just 1 egg yolk. Now, this is going to make around probably 12 to 16 of these. And then a little bit of the almond extract goes in as well. And Peter, if you can grate, get the zest of that. Now, I'm using clementine there, but an orange would be absolutely perfect as well. So it's very flavoured. You've got all the spices in it. You've got the rum. You've got the fresh zest in that as well. So it really is very, very flavoured. But as I finish it, you'll see I'm going to do one more thing to this recipe as well. Okay, so let me just mix this all together. That is perfect. Hold on.
So you've obviously, this is a French recipe.
This is a French recipe.
And they're partly our Celtic cousins, aren't they, through the language of Breton?
Absolutely, yeah.
But I notice in your book there's lots of Gaelic language through the books.
Yes.
Tell us about how important Gaelic is to you.
Yeah, no, it is very important. And I know Peter introduced himself in Gaelic earlier, and we do. It is very much the Gaelic of our, the language of our home when we're back at home. And for those of you who maybe don't know, I think one's enough there, Peter, actually. Yeah, because there's quite a lot that came out of that. For those of you who don't know too much about Gaelic, there's about 60,000 Gaelic speakers left in the world. And that is about 54,000 of them in Scotland, and about 6,000 on the island of Cape Breton in Nova Scotia. Has anybody been to Cape Breton? Isn't it just the best place in the world? I just absolutely love Cape Breton. I was very lucky to go there on my tour a couple of years back. And when I arrived, actually, Peter, could you butter that as well? I remember you flying to Halifax and you head over the bridge to the island. And the first town you get to is called New Glasgow. And I said to them, can I stop and get a photo beside the sun? They're like, no bother. Then the second village we got to was Inverness. So it's like, can I get a photo by the sign? Unbeknownst to me, then you go through Oban to get to Iona, to get to Dingwall. This poor guy was like, all he wants is blooming photos of road signs. Anyway, we eventually got to the village of Mabu. Mabu's very famous for its pub called the Red Shoe. It's owned by the Rankin family. I don't know if anybody remembers the Scottish Gaelic Canadian band, the Rankin family. Best place for a night out, great place for a ceilidh. And I walked into the pub, and the barman actually spoke to me in Gaelic. And as I said, there's an amazing culture. Peter, I'm going to get you to do this part. Fill this about, I would say about 3/4.
This is more than I normally have to do.
And it was just amazing to hear the Gaelic language being spoken still so proudly across the world. And he said to me, I remember he said to me, he says, well, Cannioch, he said, I'm looking forward to hearing you sing at the ceilidh tonight. I said, pardon. There in the programme for the night was special guest from Scotland, Cannioch MacLeod. And I walked across the road to the ceilidh, and this lady walks up to me and she goes, Cannioch? I said, yes. And she said, my name is Mary McMaster. I said, good to meet you. She said, I believe we're singing a duet tonight. I said, oh. And as we're walking up to the stage, I said to her, I said, what are we singing? And she says, well, do you know any Cape Breton Gaelic songs? And luckily, I knew one. We sang it, we brought the house down. And how did I know a Cape Breton Gaelic song? Well, the year before, myself and Peter had entered the Royal National Mod with Talva the Bain the Gurima, this Cape Breton Gaelic song. And I think to the shock of everybody in the audience, but definitely the shock of us, we won. We were the first male duet to win the mod since 1968. So we entered again the year after. What song did we sing that year?
Bú Gálaigh Cláid, which is a great ceilidh song.
Yeah, it's a song about a pub in Glasgow. And we came second. Then a couple of years ago, we sang again with a song that you all know. Scanan Imich Lín. Less people nodding than I expected. No, you do know it. It's the Gaelic rendition of Auld Lang Syne. And we came fourth. Most people get better. We're getting worse. Patrick, this is normally the part of the programme when somebody would shout from the audience, sing us a song.
Oh!
Shing's like pulling teeth around here. Would you like a song? Now, it is, you know the mod's coming to Oban in a couple of weeks. Is anybody entering?
Stuart, are you singing at the mod?
Good to hear.
Oh, boy.
We both entered the Push the BL competition last year, the mouth music competition. So shall we sing the wee Push the BL?
A wee blast,
Okay.
Stuart Ma.
So this is a 3-part, a strathspey, a reel and a jig. And it's all written by the same bard. And for those of you who know Gaelic music, you'll know Push the BLs. The songs they're kind of gobbledygook and gossip from the villages. So the first one is called Seanat the Gummerich, which is Janet Montgomery. And the bard used to live next door to Janet, and he really fancied Janet. He had a big crush on Janet. Then, I'm putting this in the oven, by the way.
They'll be ready by the time we've sung a wee song.
They'll be ready. You don't need to see anything more going on here. There we go. That's in the oven. Very low oven, that one.
Some sherry supposed to go in?
No, that's drum. The rum went in.
All right.
Then the second part is called Ben and Drochnadar, the miserable wife. Again, not looking at anybody in the front row. And that's his own wife that he's talking about. So very keen on Janet next door, not so keen on his wife. And the third part is Nian the Caliche Crothiche Krobik, the daughter of the hunchbacked old lady. So very keen on Janet, not so keen on his wife, and definitely not keen on the daughter of the hunchback lady. So shall we give that a go?
Sure.
It's been a while since we've sung this.
You start.
I start, okay, right. If you know it, sing along. And if you don't, it is a song to dance to, so there's plenty of room at the front if you'd like a wee dance. Okay, it goes a wee bit like this. Seanach na cumarach gur báoch a chruniaci.
Seanach na cumarach sa hula fair an tórara.
Seanach na cumarach gur báoch a chruniaci.
Seanach na cumarach sa hula fair an tórara. Sauna rair a chunami, chwala mi sa chunami. Sauna rair a chunami na cura van an Seanach. Sauna rair a chunami, chwala mi sa chunami. Garauna rair a chunami na cura van an Seanach.
Seanach na cumarach gur báoch a chruniaci.
Seanach na cumarach sa hula fair an tórara. Seanach na cumarach gur báoch a chruniaci. Seanach na cumarach sa hula fair an tórara. Sauna rair a chunami, chwala mi sa chunami. Sauna rair a chunami na cura van an Seanach. Sauna rair a chunami, chwala mi sa chunami. Garauna rair a chunami na cura van an Seanach.
Ben an doch nader specker am hini, ben an doch nader njani.
Ben an doch nader specker am hini, ben an doch nader njani.
Ben an doch nader specker am hini, ben an doch nader njani.
Ben an doch nader specker am hini, ben an doch nader njani. Bidi kriechens, bidi kraven, ben an doch nader njani. Bidi kriechens, bidi kraven, ben an doch nader njani. Bidi kriechens, bidi kraven, ben an doch nader njani. Ben an doch nader specker am hini, ben an doch nader njani.
O nie an de caliche crottige krubich und die cools rotigeram.
Vreppigi kassen me shecher an nula, hyndigi cools, rotigerum.
Nie an de caliche crottige krubich und die cools rotigeram.
Vreppigi kassen me shecher an nula, hyndigi cools, rotigerum.
Yundigi cool if
Hyndigi cool, if
yundigi cool that's
rotigerum. Hyndigi cool, if yundigi cool, if yundigi cool, is rotigerum. Hyndigi cool, if repagin tola, hyndigi cool, is rotigerum. Oni in the kalige krotige krubig, hyndigi cool, rotigerum.
Up.
That's what fourth place sounds like. Thank you very much. Are those cakes ready already?
No, they're not. But luckily I didn't put the oven on because I forgot to do one thing. A
Aha.
very important thing. So let me just go back to the oven. Excuse me, it's downstairs.
I see there's jam to go in.
Yes, no, there's one last thing to do, and it's a lovely wee treat when you get there to it. So any jam, look, waste not, want not. I got these wee things for Christmas, so I've got all. I got a tart jam works really well. There's a Morello cherry jam that'll work perfectly. And all you do is get a wee spoon, which I don't think I have. I'll take the top of this one, take a wee bit out, and pop it in the top there. That's all you do, and that is going to be enveloped by the batter as it bakes. And so in the middle of the recipe, you're going to find this wee burst.
You pop it in?
No, that's it.
Just sit it
you
on.
just leave it like that. And I'll do the rest later.
Right, get them in the oven or they won't be ready.
I'll be back from the oven in just a second.
So, Kanyach.
Yes.
I've got a few wee quick round questions for
Quick
you.
round questions. Okay.
This is a game called This or That.
This
Very
or that.
simple.
Right.
So, you tell us, whiskey or bourbon?
Do you know what? I love both, and I've just spent a month in America, so I have been drinking a lot of bourbon. Have you heard that saying, something in the streets, something in the sheets? No? Okay. So I'd like to say bourbon in the streets and whiskey in the sheets. I'm not trying to be rude. What I'm saying is, when I'm going out, I like to drink bourbon, and on the way home, I like to drink whiskey. Is that okay?
The Hebrides, inner or outer?
Oh, I'm a wee bit biased. I do love the inner Hebrides, but it's always the outer for me.
See, I'm an innie myself.
Like belly buttons.
Yes.
Aye.
Haggis or black pudding?
Again, being from the Isle of Lewis, do you know what? I don't think I had haggis till my 20s. Haggis is quite a southern thing for us. So definitely, if you're going to the island, Stornoway black pudding, it's an absolute must.
Gay Gordons or strip the willow?
I'll be doing both tonight, but I'll go for a strip the willow.
We're heading to a wedding dance tonight at the Argyllshire Gathering Halls. So there's going to be loads of dancing. Taylor Swift or the Proclaimers?
Taylor Swift or the Proclaimers? Well, to be fair, I probably would walk 500 miles to see Taylor Swift, but I would definitely walk 500 more to see the Proclaimers.
Sticky toffee pudding or Cranachan?
I love them both, and they're both in my book, but a sticky toffee pudding. Actually, in my new book, out 10th of October, there is a sticky, boozy toffee pudding. buy it just for that.
It's a winner.
Amazing. Again, spiced rum, a spiced rum toffee sauce.
Although my favourite thing that you've made recently was the mulligatawny soup.
Yeah, so I told my friends, another friend of mine, that I was making a chapter of soups in my new book. And we were going through them all, and she goes, there's that recipe though, and I totally love it. It's from the Isle of Mull. I was like, a soup from the Isle of Mull? She goes, yeah, it's got curry in it. It's like a mull soup with curry in it. She meant mulligatawny, which definitely isn't from Mull, but I've now in my book called it Isle of Mulligatawny soup. So,
so wait, I've got one last this and that for you, and it is a soup-related one. Cullen skink or cockaliki?
Cullen skink or cockaliki? Well, what's the main ingredient of cullen skink? Smoked haddock, yeah. And what's the 3 main ingredients of cockaliki? Chicken, leeks, and... No, not potato. Who said that again? Prunes. Exactly, prunes. And you know what? I was going to make a cockaliki soup in my book, but instead I made something else because I had lots, and I slow cooked the ingredients, the chicken, the leeks, and the prunes. And I thought, wonder what that would be like as like a pie filling. Amazing. I made a cockaliki pie. The prunes just melted into the sauce. Delicious. If you do buy my second book, it's in my second book, and I promise you I don't make many mistakes in my book. No, I don't. That's the only mistake I know. And you'll see in the photo I put carrots in the pie. I didn't put it in the ingredients. So could you write, don't forget the carrots, at the bottom of that page, please?
That recipe really is a winner,
It's
though.
a
I
winner.
remember the day that you made it because, well, you were going to make the soup, weren't you?
I was.
And then Susie, your photographer, said, oh, Kanyach, not cockaliki soup. And he said, why, what's wrong with cockaliki soup? And she said, well, Kanyach, it's a clear broth, and then you have
A white bowl.
And a wee prune floating along the top. And I just can't get this image out of my head.
The wind machine's working there.
So he actually invented the pie. Oh, it's snowing. He invented the pie recipe because we had all the ingredients in the house. So yeah, they were great. Oh, they look amazing.
They do. The wind machine blew it a wee bit too much. But here are my wee nuns. And I want, Peter, you to try one. You can try the wonky ones that are still in the box, okay? And I'm hoping you'll all come down and try one as well.
Here are some you made earlier.
Here are some. So let's see if we can open that out and see the jam. Can you see the jam just in the middle there? So Peter, you give that a try.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Slanja. No, they won't like them. Sorry, we shouldn't dish these out.
So, easy recipe, nice to make, and even though it's French, it does feel very, very Scottish.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Fantastic.
So, there we go.
Kanya,
Thank you very much. Now, before because Peter, you're going to slice these up.
Yeah.
But any questions from the audience at all?
I got a couple.
wait, you ask one
you
at the
ask them
end.
later, okay?
You ask one at the
questions
end.
all morning, Stuart. Anybody else before Stuart asks his questions? Any questions? Gilly. Would you like, we're like the two Ronnies. Well, Peter very sadly couldn't come to the US with me, but you've been on 2 of the tours with me before. And it is great fun because, to be honest with you, Gilly, even though I am a baker, and that is my absolute passion, I use food as a conduit to telling the stories and talking about the culture of Scotland, particularly the islands of Scotland. And I think food is a great way to get that message across. And for me, doing that, sharing the stories in that way, and the songs as well. You know, it might be the first time somebody's heard the Gaelic language or heard about the Queen getting crabs. You know, it might be the first time. So for me, if I can do both, teach somebody a recipe and share the stories, I hope people would enjoy that. Any other questions at all? Yes, madam.
I know the Outer Hebrides are not really very vegetarian, but do you do many vegetarian recipes?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I only have, as a baker, I think I've only got 2 meat recipes in each of my books. So you've got 73 non-meat recipes in the books. Can you start slicing these?
Yeah, have you got a knife?
No, but I'm sure somebody nearby might. Okay, we'll find somebody. A knife? Could you try and get one, please? I don't need the wind machine anymore, you'll be glad to. So yes, there is, it is, I mean, we do love our meat. I mean, we have a sheep, a croft with sheep. So, you know, from my perspective, I do love using mutton. I love using salmon. But as a baker, of course, I have the sweetest tooth in the world. But my only kind of cross one, in my first book, everybody was like, well, you have to have a haggis recipe. And I thought to myself, well, I don't really want to write a recipe when the first line is rip the lungs out of a sheep. So I did a vegetarian haggis recipe and make it just for the whiskey sauce.
Oh,
put
the
it
whiskey
on yourself,
sauce is a winner.
Put it on the haggis, put it on yourself, put it on anything. It is absolutely delicious. Any other questions at all? Yes, madam?
Which book is your dumpling in?
Well, do you know what? As a man from the Isle of Lewis, I can't have a book without a dumpling in it. There is a different dumpling in every book, even my new one. So in the first book is my auntie's. So that one's called my auntie's classic recipe. The second book has a chocolate-topped
And
dumpling.
Bellac's been making that duff the same way for the last 80 years. She started making them when she was about 14.
And she told me she had a secret ingredient that she found, it not so secret in exists in the book. She puts a tablespoon of marmalade in her dumpling. There we go. No, it's really good. But in
You came up with a genius idea, though, for...
the third book, this one here, I did a cross between a dumpling and a banana loaf, a banana clootie. We call it a banana duff.
Or a buff.
A buff. And do you know what? It works so well. You walk into the kitchen and you've just got this beautiful blast warmth of dumpling and
Thanks very
banana
much.
loaf as you go through. It's absolutely delicious. And in my new book, there is what I call a hogmanay dumpling. So I've made it with Christmas spices and vanilla. Oh, it's delicious. So in other words, you have to buy all 4 books. Any other questions before you come down for a wee bite? Yes, madam.
In your first and third book, you have 2 sections dedicated to Christmas recipes.
Yes.
With lots of sort of a wide variety of them. What would your ultimate Christmas dinner menu be?
God, good question. Well, as I said, I'm a bit of a soup fiend, so definitely soup. And I think just coming back from America, you realise how passionate folk are in America about Scottish food. And I always tell them that soup is, you know, our absolute starter. I love a pea and ham soup. Now, try and not say, so if I said pea and ham, what are you going to say? From a chicken. So pea and ham soup to start. I'm very traditional in my kind of first 2 courses, but I will always have at least 3 desserts on the table because I do like a classic kind of spiced, you know, those lovely spices that you get at Christmas time. But some people aren't so keen on those very spiced dishes. So my favorite is a mulled pear pavlova, which is just spectacular. And my new hogmanay clootie dumpling as well. Because you know on the islands that there's 3 days, 3-day endurance of having a clootie dumpling. Day 1, we slice it, have it as a cake. Day 2, we pour custard or cream in it. But what do we do on day 3? Fry it with Stornoway black pudding, sausages, bacon. I'm salivating.
On days 1 and 2, we wait for day 3.
Exactly. Ben would like to make me a duff tonight and drop it off in the morning. But I absolutely love that as well. So, folks, that one is very... I hope that one likes ice and sugar. But come down if you would like to try some of the bakes. But a big cheer. Thank you so much, and I hope you really enjoyed it. For those of you who are keen, I am out in the main foyer, and remember, it's only 3 months till Christmas. If you want signed books, I can personalize books for you for yourself or for gifts as well. But please come down and give these a try if you would like, and then I'll see you out in the foyer as well. Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you. Oh.
Where do we find your book when it comes
you can come to the Rockfield Centre on what date, Peter? The 17th of October?
Yes.
They're available
During Mod
everywhere.
Week, there's a wee event in the Rockfield Centre, and I think there's tickets available
There's
online
some
for
tickets
that.
left, yeah. So the books will be in Waterstones, but get your tickets now. I'm hosting an event with with musicians and stories at the Rockfield Centre as part of the Royal National Mod on the 17th of October. Okay? Oh, more questions. Sorry. I was trying to catch before the next act came on. Yes, madam. Well, do you know what? That was part of the Winter Festival, wasn't it? I loved it. They haven't invited me back, so I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But that was a really fun event.